Now, to introduce our speaker, we will have our Vice President for the Center, Sister Faith. Sister Faith, the one who started the Manhattan Sai Baba Center, who was instrumental in starting in 1976 under the directions of Swami. So she's served in many offices. Currently, she's serving as the Center Vice President. One thing I want to add, our special guest speaker, is that Swami has said that when you reach 70, you are like Sapta Rishis, like the 7 holy sages. When you're 80, you are Ashtadik Palakas. You're the head of each of the main regions, east, west, north, east, southwest. The Dikpalakas means the head of those regions. When you reach 90, you are Navagrahas, that means the 9 planets. When you reach 100, you are pure divinity. So we have amongst us the pure divinity. To introduce Sister PHYLLIS KRYSTAL, please welcome Sister Faith.
Sai Ram, it is such a joy to be introducing my dear friend and Sai sister, PHYLLIS KRYSTAL, a dear friend and sister to all of us. Many of you know that professionally, PHYLLIS is a psychoanalyst, and through her work, she developed so much insight, understanding, and compassion for the human struggle, and began to experience inner guidance on how to work with her patients in meditation. And when she went to Baba in 1973, he confirmed that the inner guidance that she was receiving did come from him. Tonight, the topic of her talk is connecting to God within. And many of you know that PHYLLIS has written many books, and they're all really about removing the obstacles that keep us, that interfere with our connecting to God within. And I'm just going to read something very brief from one of those books. PHYLLIS has also traveled the world speaking on this topic. This book is one of PHYLLIS's small books. It's called Let's Thank God. And it has quotes of Baba's and her reflections on those quotes. And I'm just going to read a little bit. Baba has said, every living being in this world is knowingly or unknowingly on a spiritual pilgrimage. And just to read a little bit from PHYLLIS's reflections, she says, at some time, we must wake up to the fact that there is more to life than maintaining our physical existence, and that we are inevitably on an inner journey from the personal everyday life to the realization of God within. And so we are faced with the need for self-awareness to determine if our lives are being lived with that tenet in mind. Are we once again wasting this opportunity we have been given to wake up and live consciously instead of sleepwalking our way through year after year until this life ends and the chance is no longer available to us? So you can understand why this topic is a great one for PHYLLIS to be speaking about, and I won't say anything more because I cherish the opportunity to hear her speak to us on it. And let's please give her a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I always thoroughly enjoy being able to talk to Sai devotees, because then I know they are wide open to what he had to teach, but also what he was teaching me through the work, through the method, all these many years, even before I knew he existed. So it's a real gift to be able to share with all of you. And I hope that you have plenty of questions so that I know exactly what you would like to hear about. But it has now come to the time when I'm able to put the method that I've been taught together with Swami's message, because they're exactly the same. In fact, that's the one reason when I first met Swami that I could accept what he had to teach, because it was so familiar to me. But I had no idea when I started the work that he even existed in a physical form in the body. So it was an enormous surprise to me when I first went there and realized that I was teaching it with the method that I had been taught, exactly what he was teaching. It was absolutely a revelation. I thought, well, how could that ever happen? So when I first met Swami, my husband and I went to India as soon as I had read the first book. And I was given that first book just yesterday, I guess it was. And that was Arnold Schulman's, just named his book Baba. And it was not a very good one. I found it when my husband and I were going to India. We'd never heard of Baba, but my husband had to go there on business. And so we had a long journey to get there. And we were in a bookstore ready to get some reading material for the long journey. And I reached for the book that I wanted to get, and this other book fell down, almost knocking me on the head, and then fell straight on the shelf in front of me with the title, the outside cover title page, completely just there. And I saw this figure, and I thought I had really studied most of the wonderful masters, never seen this one before. I wonder who he is. But the funny thing was that when I picked up the book, it made my fingers tingle. It was like I was getting an electric shock, and I thought, I've never had that happen before. This must be very special. So when my husband came hurrying along to get me to go, and asked me, do you want to take this book with you? Have you got others? I just didn't even think. I just closed it up and said yes. So that was my first introduction. And you know, I think it would be wonderful if someday we could have a collection of stories. How did we reach Baba? Because they're so fascinating, and they're all so different. That's the way he was introduced himself to me. But I hear other stories, very, very interesting. And I think it would be wonderful to share all our stories so that we could share it, because every story has a wonderful message to it. So, the one thing which I remember distinctly from that first meeting, which was in Whitefield, was that at that time, there were so few people there. I think my husband and I were about part of 5 Westerners. That was it. And even those Westerners were the flower children. They were more like our children's or even grandchildren's age. And they all came up to us and said, what are you doing here? Where are your children? Shouldn't they be here? No, we left our children behind, and we were the ones who investigated. So in those days, when we first went, it was extremely primitive. And so, as it was in Whitefield, we would go there we would stay in the city, and then go each day. We didn't stay at the ashram. So, at the end of our visit, which was not a very long one, in those days, Baba always gave to certain people what he called a farewell interview. So he called us in, and the first thing he said to my husband is, when does your plane leave? Which one are you taking? And my husband told him, and he said, oh, then you've got plenty of time. And I realized it was Baba teasing my husband, because he kept him on tenterhooks. My husband was always in a great hurry, always had to have it very precise. He was a lawyer. And so Baba just pushed him to the limit. And my husband kept looking at his watch, as much as to say, you know, we're going to miss that plane. Well, strangely enough, the plane was delayed. And Baba knew it was delayed, but we didn't. So he pushed my poor husband almost to the limit. But then I was wondering, as I sat there in the interview, I was asking myself a question. Here we've come, we heard about him, I read the book, and now we're here. Now what do we do? Do we come back again? Or do we try to find a center? What's the next step? Now in those days, I was painfully shy, but I was so anxious to know what we should do now that I plucked up my courage and asked Baba. I said, I have a question. What do we do now? We've come to see you, it's been wonderful, but do we come again? You know, what would you suggest? And I'll never forget what he said, because it's so relevant. Now, he always used to point his finger at me, like an old school teacher, you know, getting my attention. And he said, Mrs. Krystal, first thing, you must remember, you do not have to come back to see this little body. And he pointed to himself. And he let that sink in. And then he said, find my counterpart in your own heart. And that was all the way back in January of 1973. He's been saying that in my hearing ever since. That is his true message. And that, I think, is why he had to remove his form from the world, because everybody was attached to the form. And it was very, very attractive, and we all were attached to the form. I was an exception, oddly enough, because I had been introduced to this work, which I now see he was teaching me, although I didn't even know he existed, because the work that I was doing was coming from what I called the high C, for higher consciousness, because we have a conscious mind, a subconscious mind, and a superconscious mind. And the superconscious is the real self. The subconscious is the memory bank. So I was used to that. So when he said, you must find my counterpart in your own heart, I knew exactly what he meant. So I was really very, very, very blessed not to get attached to his form. So I was not devastated when he died. And I would love to share the fact and encourage all of you, don't mourn him forever. He doesn't want us to mourn his going, because he's much more available now than he ever was when he was there at the ashram in a body. We can reach him anytime. We used to think, oh, we can only see him when we go to India. No, because he's in every single one of us, and he's everywhere. And I'll always remember one time when many of the members of the US organization were there at the ashram at the same time, which was most unusual. It had not been planned that way. It just happened that many of us had decided to go at that time, or rather, I should say, Baba arranged it that we planned to go at that time. So we all were. We all went. It was on the outside. We weren't in a room. We were all sitting on the ground, and every now and then, Baba would come drifting in and sit down for a while, because they took this opportunity to discuss a very difficult problem. There was one person in the organization who was extremely controlling, and they did not know what to do about this situation because it was causing so many problems. That was the discussion, and Baba was sitting there. And the wives, all of the people in the organization except one woman were men. So we wives were allowed to be at all the meetings if we didn't talk. And that was extremely difficult. You know how it is when something is being discussed and you are not allowed to talk, you're not allowed to share anything that's coming to your mind. But anyway, we understood that was the rule. So I was sitting there with all of the discussion going on, and what was going through my mind was, how do we tell for sure whether something that we're thinking or planning is our will, or is it somebody else's will, which is what they were discussing. It was always this one member's will, or it was the control, or when it's Swami's will. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we knew how to tell the difference? Because sometimes it's extremely difficult. So this was going on in my mind while they were all discussing this situation. And all of a sudden, Swami pointed to me and said, Mrs. Crystal, you've got something to say. Please say it. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, Swami. I'm a wife. I'm not allowed to speak. And he came up to me and said, Swami, it's like he was 10 feet tall. He said, Swami is telling you to speak. Now speak. So I told him, I told all of them what was going in my mind, because it was relevant, what they were all discussing. How could they tell whether they should be following this one particular member's ideas, or whether they wanted Swami's ideas, or whether they had ideas of their own? It was a big question. We all have this question. So I told the question, I told them all the question, and he looked around with a very smug smile, and he said, you see, it was a very good question, which made me feel like about that big, everybody looking at me, which I hated in those days. So he sat there and he told exactly what to do. He said, take one of my photographs, go to a very quiet place where you're alone, concentrate on the photograph and ask me what you need to know. What do you want to ask me? And then listen very carefully. Try to get your thoughts out of the way and just listen. And because you're asking, you will get the answer within 20 minutes. Now, we don't always get the answer within 20 minutes, but the answer is on its way. And it's amazing when people practice that, because we're always faced with questions. We'll get into a situation in our life, and we really won't know. People are telling us what to do. We think we know what to do, but we want to know what Swami wants. And this was his answer, and it's absolutely wonderful. It works. But it's very simple, and we've been taught from infancy on that only when things are very complicated, very esoteric, very intellectual, are they important. Nothing could be further from the truth. Baba always says, keep it simple, be like a child. But we don't understand that, because we've been taught that we must be very mature, we must be very intellectual, we must do well at school with our intellect. And he says, no, we must be like children and listen within. And if you've worked with children, as I have, you'll know that when they are very small, they're still very much attached to the high C. When I first meet a small child whose parents have brought him or her, I always ask, how would you like me to help you? And they never really know. So then I explain that the high C, which is what I call the God's force, or the Baba self within each one of us. And to my surprise, they all say the same thing if they're below 5 years of age, not beyond it. And they'll say, oh, but Mrs. Crystal, do you know that? And I say, yes, I'm surprised. Because then they say, oh, well, we knew that, but we never tell any grown-up. And that you are a grown-up and you know that? Because children are very aware of their God self until around 5, sometimes even younger. And that's when they've been educated away from that knowledge. They're very connected with their God self, because they've come from the God Self. They are the God Self in a human body. And children know this. And the new children who are coming to birth know it very well. And they don't mind saying, I know I'm God. And it's so refreshing to meet children who can express it that way without any embarrassment. So we need to be like little children, not childish, but childlike. And fortunately, the method that I was taught from the late 50s until now, and it's still coming through, more ideas are coming through, more exercises. It's a continuous flow. This has taught many, many people besides me that we do have within us what Baba was always saying, we are God. And that brings me to another very embarrassing memory. We were all in an interview one time, my husband and me and other people, and Baba came floating into the room because he hardly walked, he just floated. And he was singing a little song, you don't know who you are. And we all looked around at one another and we thought we knew who we were. And then he said, you know you're all God. And we were all a little startled at that. I mean, it was not a new idea, but it was startling hearing him say it. And then he pointed to me, and he knew right from the beginning that I was unbearably shy. I would never speak if I could avoid it. So he said, Mrs. Krystal, say I'm God. And I said, but Swami, I can't. I would have been beaten if I dared to say it when I was growing up. Say I'm God, Mrs. Krystal. So he kept repeating it, and I kept avoiding it. And finally I thought, oh, I've got to get this over with. So I said, I'm God. He said, say it louder. We can't hear you. So I said it a little louder. No, louder. We need to hear you. And he kept at it until I was fairly screaming it. Then he was satisfied. And then whenever he saw me, he said, don't forget you're God. Like he needed to remind me. Because I was brought up in the Church of England, and it's in some ways quite like the Catholic Church, which of course I'm surrounded by right now in Europe. And so if I had dared to say I'm God, I know I would have been beaten. But here he was urging me to do it. But now I understand we have to know that the body is just the container of the God Self, which Baba always called it. He would often talk to me about the method, but I didn't realize until fairly recently that even though I didn't know he existed in the world when it first started to be given to me, it was coming from my high C, which is the superconscious part of my mind, and that's what Swami represents. He showed us in his physical form our own God Self. And so we should be able to take that baby step, which was not such a baby step for me in those days, but it shouldn't be quite such a baby step for all of you. We have to realize that, yes, he had to leave because we were all too much attached to his form. We had to keep going to him to ask him questions instead of asking questions as he had directed within us. Yes, looking at his photograph to make the connection, but then asking from within, what do you want me to do? So our whole, one time, he told me, he said, you have no self-confidence. I said, no, none. He said, you won't have just self-confidence. With a small s. You will have self-confidence with a big S. And then he said that that's our inner journey, from the little self to the big self. And he explained that everybody in the whole world was on that journey, even if they didn't believe they were or didn't know they were. So what you're asking me to tell you tonight is how to find the God within. And this is one of the ways we can do it. I don't know where our maypole went. There it is, right in front of my nose. This, everybody asks me, you know, they know the work, they know the method I've been teaching. And they say, well, how do I keep contact with the high sea or with God, the God self? And this is a wonderful way to do it. It's so simple. Children adore it. And they love to make their maypole themselves. And when families work with the maypole, or it's just unbelievable. The energy and the feeling in the family changes completely. And this is how this was given. When this friend of mine, Virginia, and I started this inner investigation, trying to find the source of some of the guidance that we were receiving without really knowing where it came from, we thought there must be some part of our mind which would give us these insights or these hunches or these glimmers when our conscious mind had not been able to find the answer to questions. So we got together quite regularly and decided to see if we could reach that part of our mind more often, so we wouldn't have to wait till we had a dream or we wakened up in the morning and we had an answer to our questions. We would find a way to get the answer more regularly. So this is what came. A Methodist minister called me one day on the telephone and said he'd been hearing from several of his parishioners that I was into some kind of a method, and the more he heard about it, the more he was interested, and would I mind if he came to speak to me. So he came to speak to me, and he told me why he was there. He said, first of all, he would like me to tell him how to improve his prayer group. And I'd never even been to a prayer group, let alone directing one. So I knew I personally, Phyllis, did not know. And so I said so. And so he said, well, can you do what what I understand you usually do? Ask inside. I said, yes, I'm perfectly willing. So he started out by saying that the way he was conducting his prayer group at the moment was having everybody sit around in a circle and hold hands. And out of my mouth came the one word, no, quite violently. And I couldn't understand what that meant. It sounded like a good idea to me to be sitting around in a circle and holding hands. I didn't know that it was not right. And then I had to tune in again. And I knew that the answer was something I absolutely did not know personally. It never would have occurred to me. And that was that when a group holds in a circle, holds hands, it lowers the energy or the inspiration of the group to the lowest common denominator of the people in the group. That is the least evolved person in the group. That's the level. I thought that was astonishing because I'd often been in a group where they held hands. But since then, I've tried it out. And it's amazing. You can feel the difference. It's like, you don't get lifted up, you get grounded. And of course, it's very good to be grounded, but not when you're in a group seeking for inspiration. So obviously, my next question was, or his next question was, well, what do you do? What would I do for my prayer group? So then I was shown that if we would all raise our hands as high as we could above our heads and all to take hands together, this would raise the energy in the group to the highest common denominator of the members in the group, the most inspired, the most understanding or knowledgeable person, not knowledgeable with school knowledge, but knowledgeable about who we all are. And so that was the way we were shown that he should not have his group hold hands around in a circle, but hold hands up above. Well, can you imagine, for 20 minutes or half an hour, everybody in the group holding their hands up above their heads? They would be exhausted. So we had to find something that would enable us to do exactly what I'd been shown, but not with so much of an awkward movement of just all reaching up. Then I realized that I was becoming a little irritated with the fact that I was remembering when I grew up in England, on May the 1st every year, a maypole was set up in the village green. And all of the children of the village would take ribbons and dance around the maypole in preparation for crowning one of the little girls as the Queen of May to usher in the spring solstice. And I'd always enjoyed that, but I was not exactly happy with the fact that I was thinking about it now. I thought, oh, that's my monkey mind. Not that I knew about a monkey mind in those days, but I knew that my mind could distract me. And I thought, oh, that's ridiculous. Why am I thinking about it? But then I realized what a wonderful way for us all to make contact with the God within us. Because the sphere, the gold sphere at the top of this maypole is perfect, it's complete, it's round. It's a symbol for perfection or wholeness. That's what the high sea is like. That's what we are like as God. And here are all the ribbons attached to it. If we took a ribbon, wouldn't that connect us to the God within us? And then the penny dropped, and I thought, now I've got the secret. Now I've got something to share with people. And so I told the minister, and I've told many people since then, and many people, as I told you, have family maypoles. And it's wonderful because, you see, it gets your attention and it keeps you connected. So all you do is just take a ribbon and think of this ribbon as a telephone connection with your high sea or your God self. And that connects you. It's unbelievable if you really do it simply. Don't make a complicated thing out of it. Don't argue that it's childish. Don't say, oh, this is beneath me. I'm an intellectual. Baba didn't approve of intellectuals. He said the conscious mind gets in the way. Too much book knowledge is a real a problem with most people. So we have to keep it simple. He was always saying, keep it simple, simplify, shorten. So this is a perfect way, which was given to me, as I said, of making that contact with the God within. Then we are never lonely. We don't miss Baba in his physical form, because we can imagine that he's at the top of this maypole, and we are taking a ribbon so that even though he's not in the body anymore, we can use the ribbon as a telephone connection and talk to him. And finally, open ourselves and be quiet enough to get the replies. And that's the only way I can live from now on. I think we all are headed for the time when we can just be an instrument of Baba. And that means doing what he always says, don't be the doer. You're not the doer. Only God is the doer. And this is a wonderful way to be that. And being his instrument is such a great way to live. Then you don't worry. You don't even worry about the results of what you'll be doing if you're his instrument, because then he himself within you takes all of the results. And it's a wonderfully relaxing way to live. It's the only way I can live, or I can even work, at my ripe old age, because I'm now 99, which is kind of astonishes me. But my mother lived to be 107, so I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised. But I recommend it so much because so many people are so insecure. They have such a low image of themselves. They're guilty, they're sinners, they've been told they're sinners, particularly in the Catholic Church. Baba doesn't ever say you're sinners. It's a curse to think you're sinners. Then you're branded and you're hopeless. That's not what Baba teaches. He teaches, no, your real self is the God self. So I love now to take people through the maypole exercise, which has become a kind of a ritual. And then, when you have been taken through it, when you've been introduced to the maypole, then in order to make contact with what I call the high C or the God self, you can imagine being right back here, where you're all hearing me describe this. You can always remember after you've left. Probably you can remember for several weeks afterwards. And then just imagine you're back here and you're taking a ribbon with a funny little maypole, my traveling one, and that will key you in. Because when a group gets together and all are connected with Baba, the Baba self or the God self, it forms what I call an energy, a big energy in the group. And you can always go back in memory to that time when we were all together here. And recently, I've been suggesting that people get a piece of ribbon. There are several pieces, different colors, their favorite colors, and keep them in their pocket so that whenever they really would like to make contact with Baba within, they just take hold of that ribbon, and that reminds them. So I would like to take you through the exercise of what we call the maypole exercise, so that the ones who haven't already been exposed to this exercise will get the experience of really connecting, if you do it, really connecting to the God within, which Baba kept emphasizing. That's what is important, not him in his physical form, because that will not always be with us, and now it's not with us. But when we make contact with it within us and within other people, we will have just as wonderful an experience of feeling his love as if he were here in person, just like we've experienced his love when we were at the ashram. So I would like to take you through the exercise because it's exactly in answer to the title of the speech I'm supposed to be giving today. Well, if you asked me to give a speech, I would probably stand up, burst into tears, and sit down. I've never been able to give a speech, not from my conscious self. So I always listen and ask Baba, please speak through me. And please don't let me make any mistakes. So this would really be helpful for all of you to put into practice the title of the speech I'm supposed to be giving tonight. It will enable you, if you wish, I'm not here to control you, only to share, but it will make it possible for you to connect to your Baba self, your God self, anytime you wish. The only problem is we forget. I forget too. The method has come through me, I think because he knew I had such a low self-image that I knew that whatever came would not be from me or my ego. So I think he had a clear slate on which to write by choosing, because otherwise I can't imagine why he chose me to bring forth this method. But he did, and I'm very, very grateful, and I love to share it because I've been doing it and teaching it for all these years, and it works. Because we are connected with the real self, not our brain, not our conscious mind. So I don't want to control you, but I would like to take you through this exercise just so that you can have that experience of making contact with the love that we can connect with within ourselves. We don't have to mourn the fact that we can't go to the ashram and feel his love coming from his form. So, only if you wish to be taken through, otherwise just sit and listen, because I don't want to force it, I don't want to control you in any way. We're all free. So if you would like to participate, then if you are sitting in a chair, please uncross your legs. If you're sitting in the lotus or cross-legged, even if it's in a chair, you don't have to. Because when you're sitting in a chair and you're crossing one leg over the other, not only does it throw your whole spine out of kilter, but also it cuts off the energy or the flow of energy within you. And we want the flow to come from the high sea to each of us. So to cut it off would be stupid. So if you're sitting in a chair, don't uncross your legs so that your feet are on the floor. And then, because we're going to be receiving from our God self or our Baba self, we always hold our hands like this when we're going to receive something. You know, if somebody's giving you something, you hold out your hand to take it. So this shows we're willing and anxious to receive whatever the Baba self, whatever Baba within us wants to give us tonight. So just loosely in your lap, complete as relaxed as you can be. And then I will lead you through the whole exercise, which is a wonderful one. I didn't dream it up. It was given by this same method of asking within and getting the directions from the Baba self within. So it was God-given. And Baba himself, in his human form, used to give me wonderful little reassurances. One time I found a wonderful picture, a photograph of him with his hands up above his head, as if he were reaching above his head, just like that we do when we're doing this. And there were many, many times when he would refer to something in the method and reassure me, because a lot of people were saying that this method gets between Baba and his devotees. It does the opposite. It connects us to the Baba within. And that's what we desperately need now he's not in his human form anymore. So you make your own mind up. Those of you who'd like to participate, please do. The ones who don't feel comfortable, just sit quietly and listen. So here you are, ready to receive. Now you have to use your imagination. If I were to say, come up and take a ribbon, it would be chaotic with so many of you in the room. When I work with small children, it's usually a small group, and they love to come and take their ribbon. But I think with all of you, it's better not to try. So you have to use your imagination. Imagine you're coming up to this little maypole, choosing a ribbon, any color. It might be your favorite color, but sometimes people say, oh, it's like one color wanted me to take it. So have fun with it. It doesn't matter what color. Telephones come in every color you can imagine these days. So it's a telephone, whatever the color. It's a connection, whatever the color. So take hold of the ribbon in your hand, and then think of it. You are, by doing this, giving yourself the message that you want contact with your real self. We call it the high C, for higher consciousness. You can call it anything you want. Baba always said, call me by any name, and I'll answer. So it doesn't matter what the name is. We call it high C because it's the higher consciousness, and it's our real self, the part that does not die when our bodies die. So take your ribbon and go back to your seat, holding it loosely in your hand. And just think, this is a telephone connection. What do you do with the telephone? You talk to somebody at a distance, but you also can listen. So this is the same thing. You can talk to the Baba within, or the high sea, and you can listen. And the more you do it, the more you will be able to get that communication going. Because it's the only way I could sit here and talk to you. If I had to do it without my connection with Baba, it would be absolutely impossible. You'll have to believe me, because that's the truth. So, each one holding your ribbon, just say within in your mind, I want you to tell me or show me what you have to give me. Everybody was asking Baba all the time for this or that or the other. And he said, I give you what you want, hoping that at some point you will ask me what I have come to give you. So this is a way of asking him what he has come to give us. Not what we want, necessarily, not what somebody else wants, but what he wants to give us. So just ask right now to be given whatever the Baba self, the Baba within you, wants to give you. And see what comes to your mind. Maybe nothing will come right now, but because you're asking, eventually you will get the answer to that question. And then we'll give up the rest of this period where we're all together. We'll give up the direction that's coming from the Baba within each of us, so that each of you will receive tonight what he knows you need, the he within you, the Baba image representing your real self. And then next we will ask for relaxing energy, which is extremely important in this world. It's so chaotic. Everybody is telling me, and not just telling me, but everyone is saying that they think time is going faster and faster. We have to put so much into a day, which was never possible before. So we are really tense, and then all the news on the media is so disturbing. In the old days, we didn't hear about earthquakes or tsunamis or hurricanes until long after they'd occurred. Now we hear about them immediately, and we're being bombarded with all these disasters all over the world, and we can't cope with it. So, ask right now for relaxing energy to flow to you, and breathe it in deeply. Just take a deep breath, breathing in relaxing energy, and feel it moving it within you, in your mind, in your heart, in your body, relaxing you. And as you take a deep breath, breathe it in. And sometimes people tell me that if they will hunch up their shoulders towards their ears when they breathe in, and then just let their shoulders drop when they breathe out, they will be able to release a lot of the nervous tension, a lot of the stress. So try it out. Whenever you feel tense, you can just take 2 or 3 minutes, go to a quiet place, and just release whatever tension you built up during the day. Remembering to do it is the difficult part. So just try to get some little reminder so that you will remember to do this. So take 1 or 2 more deep breaths, breathing in the relaxing energy and letting go with your breath all tension, because we can achieve much more when we're relaxed. When we're tense, we make more mistakes. and it takes up more time, more energy. So just continue 2 or 3 more deep breaths, and I'll be quiet while you take them. Breathing in this relaxing energy and letting go of all tension. Feel it running out through your fingers and toes. And now the next thing we'll ask for is healing energy. Not just physical healing. Many of us need that, but some of us need emotional healing or mental healing. Our thoughts drive us crazy. Our emotions drive us crazy. Many things we need to relax with. We need to have many parts of ourselves healed. So just breathe in the healing energy and let it do whatever Baba knows is needed. And as you breathe out, let go of the control of any condition that's negative, that's not for your well-being. Just let go of it as you breathe out. And take 1 or 2 deep, deep breaths. Breathing in the healing energy and letting go of the control of any condition that needs to be healed. Just let go. And next we'll ask for cleansing energy to flow to us from the Baba Self or the High Sea. We carry around, most of us, such a burden, like a big a backpack that we carry around all our lives, full of worries, full of old memories of the past, old quarrels, old difficulties, old problems, and we just keep turning them over and over in our memory. And they're really poisonous because then if they're negative. So we need to cleanse. We need to let go. I always like to say, we keep our houses clean, we clean our bodies, we keep our surroundings clean, but we forget this inner cleansing. We all have negative thoughts, envy, jealousy, anger, criticism. We carry these around with us, and we can let go of them, and then we can express love and joy and be happy. When we're full of negative memories, we're not happy if they're negative. It just worries us more. We might have made mistakes, and they weigh heavily upon us. So breathe in this cleansing energy and let go of anything from the past that we are willing to release. Just let go as you breathe out. And take 1 or 2 deep breaths and see what comes up in your memory. What are you thinking about right now? What were you remembering this morning or yesterday that worried you, that you're still worried about? We don't need them anymore. The past is gone. There's nothing you can do about it, so let go of it. And as you live each day in as an instrument of the Baba Self or the God Self, you will be forming by each day, like stepping stones, you will be forming a much more positive future, because the future is not made yet. We're in the process of making it. So if we want a good future, we have to take the steps to get one. And that is letting go of all the past and living according to Baba's teachings. And that would take us to a much more positive future. So just feel as if a wonderful mountain stream was coursing within you, removing all the negative memories, all the things you think over, you stew over, all the things that are like a heavy cloud on your life. Just let go of them. They're only a problem. There's nothing you can do about them, so let go of them. It's a waste of time and energy to keep dwelling on the past. So this is a wonderful opportunity to let go of it. So one more deep breath. Breathing in the cleansing energy and really letting it flush out all those old negative memories. Don't just keep going over and over and over and over. That makes them even stronger and more worrying. And now we will ask for strengthening energy, because as I mentioned before, many people say that they think time is going faster, that there's too much to do every day. So we need the strength to take us through a day. I couldn't possibly do what I'm doing at my age and in my precarious health situation if it weren't for the fact that I know I can get the energy by just asking for it. My own energy is very limited. Many people have very limited energy. Others have a lot. It varies. But Baba himself said, ask for divine energy. Don't just rely on your human energy. And this is one way to do it. Ask for it, and then breathe it in, and feel it coursing through you, strengthening you, giving you the strength you need to deal with your life. Because it is getting harder for most of us. We're becoming aware of it, and many people are getting a little bit scared. But this will help. It helps immeasurably to have enough energy to handle whatever comes up in your life, even if it's difficult. You have to have energy to deal with it, and then you can get through it. So breathe in this energy from the high sea, from the Baba self. And as you breathe out, let go of any blocks to your receiving it. Anything that comes to your mind. What could block you from receiving any of these things that I've mentioned? See what comes to your mind, and then let go of whatever the blocks are. And then lastly, but most important of all, we've all been looking for love. Everybody has. But we've never received unconditional love, because we can only get it from the God within, or our real self. Think of what was told to you when you were growing up. I won't love you if you do such and such. I'll love you only if you're the way I want you to be. Not who you really are or were, but whatever the people around you expected, whether it was parents, siblings, other relatives, teachers. Everybody was telling all of us how they wanted us to be. And we couldn't be who we really were. So this is one thing we've all been looking for, unconditional love. We don't have to earn it. What a relief. We don't have to deserve it even. We just have to ask for it, because it is our birthright. Baba tells us that all the time. Our birthright is love. The God Self is love. But we can only get this love if we seek for it within ourselves, not from somebody else. When you demand love from another person, or even just expect it, it inhibits them, it paralyzes them. How can somebody give you something when you're insisting on it? No, it stops people from wanting to love you when you insist that they do. You don't have to insist. You can just ask for the love that's your heritage, that's your birthright. So just breathe it in right now. Just breathe it in deeply. Ask for it first, then breathe it in, just like we were able to do when Baba was in the body. You know how that love just came out from him, radiated out from him, and it was almost something you could touch. It was so strong. And it all made us feel so wonderful. So we can still get that love if we ask for it from within, and then feel that it's filling in all the empty spaces that so many of us carry around, satisfying the inner hunger for love, which we all have, everyone in the world, with people not knowing where to receive it. So ask for that love right now, unconditional, no strings attached, nothing you need to do to earn it. Just ask for it and receive it. So breathe it in deeply, and as you breathe out, let go of anything that could prevent you from receiving it. A low self-image, a feeling that you're bad, that you're wicked, that you don't deserve it. Nonsense. Doesn't matter what your past was like, doesn't matter what you're like. You still can ask for this special kind of love. This is your opportunity, all of you to do it together so that it's an even stronger impact. Now, we do have to be sure that our heart is open to receive it. And many, many of us have closed our hearts because we were hurt, or we were rejected, that we weren't loved, we were criticized, we were made to feel bad. So we closed our hearts. We didn't want to be hurt anymore. But when you ask for the love from the high sea, it will never hurt us. It will only just give us its love and help us anyway when we ask. So you're perfectly safe. Only when you ask for it within yourself, from your own God self, are you safe to receive this love. So just ask for it, and then breathe it in. And then as you breathe out, let go of anything that could stop you from receiving it. But also, check your own heart. Ask for a flower to appear at your heart. You do not need to know the name of the flower. You only need to see if it's open or if it's closed. If it's closed, it means you've closed your heart for some reason. So just tell your heart right now, you're safe to open to the love from the high sea. It will never hurt you, only heal you, help you. So tell that flower to open, and just feel your own heart opening and expanding so that you can receive the love from the high sea or the God self or the Baba self. Just feel his love flowing into you, flowing into your open heart. And now, moving up from your heart into your brain so that all of your thoughts will be loving. And see how that makes you feel. You're loved. No more lonely. Nobody can be lonely when they're connected with this love. Anywhere you go in the world, you can just ask for it. And it's there immediately, all the time. So now, imagine that it's cleaning out your brain so that your thoughts are more loving, which we all need. Many of our thoughts are very negative and we're not aware of it. And now watch as that same love flows up into each one of your sense organs. And I should mention that some clairvoyants who see what other people can't see tell me that when they're in one of the seminars and I take them through the Maple exercise, they can see clairvoyantly this love energy as a deep rose pink light. So if that will help you, you can imagine a deep rose pink light moving into each of your sense organs. That means into your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, and your skin. So just imagine that this love is flowing into all of those sense organs so that it will purify them all. What you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, and what you feel. And then imagine or visualize this love entering every single gland. And then every single organ. And now every one of the various systems of your body, the digestive system, reproductive, muscular, skeletal, reproductive, all of the other systems. Think of them all. And just imagine that the love is flowing into every one of them. And now into every cell, so that you're becoming like a sponge, soaking up this love from the high sea or the Baba self, so that you're filled with it. And it's flowing over onto the outside of you, so that you're not only filled with the love from the high sea or the God self, but you're also enfolded within it. So just sit there quietly, just soaking up this love from the high sea. This is the way to make contact with the God force within each one. And everyone has this available. Every one of you can practice this, so you will never feel lonely. You'll not even feel lonely for Baba's form, because you've got his counterpart in your own heart, just like he told me that first interview, the farewell interview, back in 1973, and it's now 2013. So that was his message, so we're putting his message into practice. And now you're going to be going away from here tonight. And I don't know where you're all going. Most of you will be going home, I gather. So you will be able to be like pioneers. When you fill yourself up with the love from the Baba within you, you can go out into the world and spread this love. Because as you look around the world, you can't help but see that it's starving for love. This hatred, this selfishness, as Baba said, everybody's me, me, me. No, not caring for anyone else. The one thing that's lacking the most in the world is love. So you can go out like little messengers or pioneers, radiating this love wherever you go. So as you go away from here tonight, don't be surprised if people smile at you or speak to you. They will be feeling this love, and everyone in the world's been seeking it all their life, but not very often have they found it, because they've looked outside to get it from other people instead of inside from the God self or the Baba self. So you'll be going away from here, so don't be surprised. And now just imagine that you have arrived ahead of your actual physical self at your destination. Most of you, I imagine, it would be your home. And sort of look around and see if you can find a very quiet place where you can just imagine that you're sitting ahead of time. You'll arrive later, but you're going on a journey right this minute, wherever you're going tonight. Finding a quiet place, and just imagine you're sitting. Instead of sitting here in this hall, you're sitting in that room or wherever you are. And you're just not doing anything but radiate, breathe out this love that you've received from your own God self, your own Baba self, the only place we can get it. And you're filling whatever space you're occupying, the whole house, the whole apartment. And it's also affecting anyone with whom you share this space. But also not just people, not just relatives or partners or children, but any pets that you may have or other little living creatures, but also plants, so that everything in your house or your apartment or your room, wherever you live, will be filled with this love. And if you will do this frequently, you'll find your whole life will change, but also your family members. They will not be able to resist this wonderful love force, this love energy. So just stay for a few more minutes. Just radiating this love, breathing it in, and then radiating it out ahead of your arrival, wherever you're going tonight. I'll be quiet for a few moments while you just very quietly breathe it in, knowing where from where you can receive it, not outside from other people, which is what we've all been looking for, not satisfying your hunger with food or something else, but going to the source where you can really be nourished, where you can receive exactly what you need. And now you have gone within for a while. You've gone to the place where you're going tonight. So now I want you to come back fully conscious to sitting here in this hall. I'm not too sure where it is, somewhere in New York. I'm not even sure of the date. I should be ashamed of myself. I usually try to remember the date, so that you come back to the present time, present place. And now start very gently to move your arms, your legs, arch your back, move your head, and come back fully conscious, because you're going to be going away from here, and you need to be fully conscious to get home safely, but with a difference. Well, I didn't expect to be taking you through the maple, but I can see that it was the perfect answer to your subject tonight of how to find the God within. And this is how you can do it. It's very clearly outlined in some of the books I've written, but it's also in the workbook, and we've got a revised workbook now, which is absolutely beautiful, because the symbols can now be in color. It will be ready, I think, in about a month. So then you can read all of the exercises and enjoy it, because it's so pretty, much more fun than the old one, which was all black and white. So we have to get back to New Jersey tonight, and then I have another busy day tomorrow. So I'm going to thank you again for asking me to come here. I'm always delighted to be able to share our love for Baba, but also to give people the hope. So many people have been mourning his death, as if he's gone. He's much more available now because he's within each one of us. We don't have to go to the ashram. We can make contact right in here by going through this exercise. So I wish you all well. I hope you have a very wonderful night's sleep, and I hope you have an even happier life if you will be practicing this method of making contact with the only source for this kind of unconditional love. There isn't anywhere else you can get it. So I thank you again for inviting me, and I hope I'll see you all again at some point. I have to come back again to finish the training program, so maybe that will be an opportunity. So, Sai Ram to all of you. It's always lovely to see your shining faces when you've gone through this exercise. So, where is Suni? Oh, excuse me.
Sai Ram, Sister Phyllis. Will you take any questions? Or?
Yes, we will. We can take a little time, I think,
Okay, great,
if there are any questions.
Please. Okay. If you could raise your hand, I will pass the mic for questions.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone who has a question? Mm-hmm.
Saram. Mrs. Crystal, you mentioned, Swami. Saram.
Oh, there you are.
So, Mrs. Crystal, you mentioned that Swami wants us to find the Swami within us.
Yes.
And that we're all God.
Yes.
When is it that you most felt the God within you? What was the experience that kind of said, you're with the God within?
Can somebody help me? Because it gets distorted with the microphone.
When did you feel God most within you? An example.
Oh, as an example, when I lost my daughter, she was killed in a car accident, when I lost my husband, and when we were hijacked. But I'm not going to go into that story because I think we should be getting home, shouldn't we, Sunil? Because I've got another extremely busy time, and it takes us a while to get to New Jersey. So I don't think we should take any more questions. I'm sorry, but it took a little bit longer because I went into a lot more detail. Obviously, it was to help you to make the contact and keep practicing. So practice, 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 and you will feel, you'll face life completely differently. And you'll be joyful, you'll be happy, and you won't be lonely. And you won't miss Baba's form because it's inside. So, Sai Ram to all of you. I hope you have a good night's sleep, and I hope some of you at least will be practicing and receiving the love that you can have because it's your birthright.
Thank you once again.
Again?
We'll have our closing prayers.
Okay.
Closing prayers, and you will receive vibhuti at the door.